Thank you, everyone, and it's lovely to be here with you. My presentation will pick up some of the aspects already alluded to by Katherine, in the sense that the work that we do with schools and with systems is drawn from an evidence base and is designed to enable schools to conceptualise their work in a way that they can come back to regularly and check to see if they have made any impact positively on student learning and academic wellbeing. So I'll start this presentation with a bit of an overview of the two main tools that we want to talk about today. I'll then spend some time on the first tool, the school improvement tool, have a think about what it looks like and how it gets used, both by us, ACER, and by other systems that use our tools. They're all available publicly, but we have a particular way of using our tools. And then after that section, we'll have a little bit of a look at a second tool, the school improvement tool elaborations, which particularly focus on student engagement and wellbeing. So these are the two main tools that ACER use when we're trying to build the capabilities of teachers and school leaders, and in fact system leaders, to provide or lead their schools in such a way that they are highly effective and they are drawing a very strong link between academic and student wellbeing in their planning for even better outcomes for students. These two tools, the school improvement tool and the elaborations tool, have emerged quite strongly from a literature base. They also pick up on over 10 years of empirical work in the field. What does this look like? So we've drawn from literature, but definitely these are two evidence-informed tools. No surprise, as Katherine's just allowed us to understand, that over the last 20 years, student wellbeing has significantly increased in prevalence in the literature base. You will see that when you look at the school improvement tool, one of the ways that we construct a story across the different elements within that tool is to look for common things that appear time and time again in the literature. And across the 9 domains of the school improvement tool, one of the things that runs across those domains is this notion of student wellbeing and engagement. So in every aspect of leading a school, every aspect of operating within a school, we see these features or characteristics come to the fore, that it is critically important to pay attention to student wellbeing if we are seeking to equip students for not just academic performance, but also a life after school that gives them opportunities. Our tools describe the practices of highly effective schools. In that way, it's a very good opportunity for a school leader or a school community to have a look at what the literature is saying highly effective schools do. So these tools include descriptions of practice, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. The critical link has been established through the literature and is evident in these tools. In fact, the reason that the school improvement tool elaboration came into being was one of the Australian education systems could see this wave of student wellbeing presentations in schools emerging and really wanted a way to hone in on that topic or that aspect of school leadership and school operations. And so that elaborations tool was born out of a genuine desire on the part of education leaders to do something more positive about this and proactively do it. The tools provoke inquiry on the part of school leaders in pursuit of improved student outcomes, both academic and wellbeing. When you open up the school improvement tool, you'll see there's a particular architecture to the layout. This is particular to the school improvement tool, but also to other ACER improvement tools. So you'll notice there's a name of a domain. We call these domains. Domain 3 is titled Promoting a Culture of Learning. Underneath the title, you'll see a paragraph that is a description. That distills, summarizes, if you like, the key things that the literature base and the empirical evidence tells us relates to this culture of learning. Still on the left-hand side, we see a set of dot points. We call them characteristics. They describe the extent to which certain things are evident in practice in schools where they're doing this really, really well. So we've got a title, a description, and a set of characteristics. Moving over to the right-hand side, and this happens for every one of the 9 domains in this tool. On the right-hand side, we see 4 performance levels: low, medium, high, and outstanding. And they cascade up as we go through, and they describe the extent to which schools are having success, have embedded practices described over there in the characteristics. Have they embedded these practices? Is there a noticeable tick upwards in both student wellbeing, student engagement, student learning outcomes as well? So those paragraphs give lots of indications to school leaders about what they might do next. And that's critically important in the use of our tools. Let's dig a little deeper and have a look at what one of these domains says about the particular topic we're looking at today. I'm remaining in domain 3, promoting a culture of learning. We'll have a little bit of a look about some of the other domains in a little while. In this description in domain 3, it points this out quite clearly, that staff are building and maintaining safe, supportive, and orderly learning environments that promote intellectual rigor. So this doesn't just talk about wellbeing. This talks about the link between wellbeing and academic success. The characteristics that are included in domain 3 have leaders being able to articulate, and they're implementing clear school-wide strategies. Katherine's already talked about that notion of a whole school approach to working in that space of wellbeing, promoting of wellbeing. Whole school strategies are established, and they're maintaining that orderly environment that supports and encourages learning. Can you see all the way through, there's this link being drawn between wellbeing and learning. Student and staff wellbeing are high priorities in the school, and processes are in place to provide both academic and non-academic support to address individual needs. That's picking up on this notion that effective work in this space pays attention to the needs of all students, of all teachers. They're critically important. They play in this space in a way that allows for something bigger than the sum of the parts, if you like. The teachers need to be well, they need to be supported for them to be able to impact positively on the students. We know that link exists. How does that play out then in the description of performance? And there's an extract there, and these are just extracts. Extract there from the outstanding performance level in domain 3 of the school improvement tool says, evidence-informed, impactful strategies are rigorously implemented to optimise wellbeing. That's a very powerful statement. And you can imagine that because we've got our tools structured so that no matter where a school is in its journey, they can find evidence of their practice written in those performance levels. Outstanding is outstanding, but there are lots of descriptions in high, medium, and low that can help a school pitch where they are, to assess where they are in any one of these 9 domains. And they can then think about, well, if we're here, what would we need to do to get to the next level of performance, to embed this even more? And they can look to those performance levels, if you like, above them as they go up that right-hand side of our tool pages, and look to the descriptions there and say, okay, that's what the next level looks like. What would we need to do in our school to be able to move into that space? So how do our tools get used? And I'll pause here for a little bit to describe the school improvement tool in particular. 4 main ways our tools get used. The first one is this notion of self-assessment. So schools being able to reflect on the way they're working in this space according to, very important, as Katherine's already said, evidence-informed benchmarks. Using the evidence to describe practice allows a school and a system to know that this has been proven, this has been well looked into, and there's some rigor and some impact available. So a school can pick up our tools and do a self-assessment process, a bit like what we were talking about before. Here we are. We want to be here. What do we need to do to get here? Let's have a look at those performance levels, descriptions, and see if we can work out a strategy to get ourselves from here to there. The other way we can use our tools, of course, ACER offers and runs school reviews, external school reviews. Lots of educational jurisdictions in Australia also do external reviewing, and many of them pick up our tools to be able to use in that process. What we do in our particular review process is we go in and we work with the school to find out what their evidence looks like and to be able to map them against those performance levels. And we give feedback to the leadership of that school, in fact, to the whole school community, about where they may want to go next. The tools also get used by systems to help build leader capabilities. In other words, helping them understand the key constructs around improvement, particularly in this case around wellbeing and engagement, and how it plays across into the academic space. So we run training, we run workshops, we work with systems to be able to build that layer of knowledge and understanding, to be able to have our leadership layer within schools and systems be aware of what these domains say. And we work with systems to think about the way they work with their schools in improving outcomes. Katherine mentioned improvement is a huge part of this work. That's what these tools are framed around, that notion of ongoing improvement. So when we go in and we work with schools and systems in reviews, we start over in the blue. We ask the school to share with us their documents, their processes, as evidenced against the 9 domains in the tool. We then go and visit the school, usually for about 3 days, depending on the size of the school. We're in conversation with many, many people in that school. We seek to talk to at least 85% of teachers, all leaders, and representative student groups and representatives of families as well from the school. So we're getting a very broad range of people involved, because we believe that everybody needs to be involved in these processes of improvement for them to work. Katherine's recommendations elucidated that as well. So we're listening out for, reading about all manner of things that constitute evidence. How is this school approaching wellbeing and engagement? How is this school constructing its strategy to be able to be even more impactful? And then we do that mapping exercise against those performance levels. We shade, we talk about the shading, we say it's shaded in a particular spot because the evidence suggested so. We give the school at the end of our process, not just that mapping and the evidence that we used to form that assessment, but we also construct a set of commendations, affirmations, and importantly, recommendations. And the school takes those, particularly the recommendations, and they help formulate their next plan. Now, when we're talking about the extent to which a school is impacting positively on student wellbeing and engagement, it wouldn't be unusual for us to put a recommendation in that highlights the need for more work in this space. The opposite is also true. Some schools are doing this really, really strongly, and so we commend them for that work. So that's the nature of the way that we go about conducting a review, all in that notion of it being an appreciative inquiry. It is not an audit. It is very much working with the school. We know that importance about context. So if we can go into the school environment, work with the school, where they're at, where they are right now, and give them some feedback about where they may go next based on what the evidence suggests will make for an effective impact, then that's the job of our reviews. This is just a representation, and you're welcome, of course, to have a look at the tool in detail. It's available on our website, but you can see there, arranged in that circle, the 9 domains. And if we went around that circle, we could think about the ways that student engagement and wellbeing are alive and active in each of those 9 domains. And sometimes what schools do is they draw a connection between particular domains. They might be thinking about that notion of wellbeing, and they might think, okay, let's have a look at where is wellbeing improvement situated in our improvement agenda. How do we promote that in our culture of learning? What data would we need to use to be able to know where we are now and where we might want to go, what our targets might be? What are our resource implications for picking up new strategies or tweaking the strategies we've got? What's our curriculum got to contribute here? What would it mean for teaching in terms of differentiating for students, that individual nature? What are the needs of the individual student? What the pedagogical practices would need to be if we are to truly engage and work with students on their wellbeing and academic performance? And then what is the role of the community? How can we tap into the community, the families, other education providers, to bring together a really holistic view around this? So you can see that even in the representation around a circle, you can actually draw lines between these domains around that notion of how do we improve student wellbeing and engagement. I mentioned before that we've got these elaborations that were born out of a very strong desire by education systems to dig even more directly into those 9 domains and to identify the aspects of student wellbeing and engagement. Because once we make that explicit, we are in a much stronger position to be able to affect it positively. So the elaborations was constructed. Now, they unpack and describe evidence-informed practices that positively impact on student engagement and wellbeing. They do not, though, unlike the school improvement tool, they do not include performance levels. This is really situating the work over there, if you like, in that left-hand side of the school improvement world, and asking schools to think deeply about the characteristics of schools doing this really, really well. So like the school improvement tool, there are 9 domains. And for each of those domains, we look at cognitive engagement, emotional engagement, behavioural engagement, and student wellbeing. This helps support the development of shared language, and sometimes that's critically important in schools and systems. If you're particularly new in this space, what we want to be able to build is an understanding across all stakeholders that we're all talking about the same thing, that we have clarity about what this means. When you're using these tools and these frameworks, and everybody's using the language contained in those frameworks and tools, you've got a far greater chance of having shared and common understanding. The research is definitely saying, as Katherine's already mentioned to you, school-wide expectations need to be there. Inclusive, emotionally safe and orderly rooms and spaces and school environments. Having a sense of collective responsibility. We're all in this together. Building on strong relationships, having a strong sense of belonging and connectedness, students being able to report that they feel like they belong in their school. Teachers feeling that they belong in their school. They're very connected to it. We hear that when we're talking with teachers, leaders, students, and parents when we go in and work with schools during review. We want that proactive approach. We want it to be a strengths-based model, and we want to attend all the time to student voice. They have something to contribute in this space. It is their engagement. It is their well-being. How do we use the elaborations? We might go and work with leaders and teachers, and we might run them through a bit of a close read of what the literature says, what the elaborations document says, and ask them all the time to be thinking not only about these 3 particular little people here on the slide, but about their context. What's going on in their school? So if we were talking about the little person who feels they belong, we're asking leaders and teachers to say, well, how might our school build a culture that results in a strong sense of connection for students? An example might be that my school acknowledges and pays respect to my unique characteristics, my background, my interests. What about the little person for whom life is not all that great at the moment? Our question of leaders and teachers, what mechanisms might be in place to respond to that student's needs? There might be a school-wide process to identify and respond to student wellbeing needs. Referral, case management approaches might be in place, and so on. That's just reminding me I'm running out of time. And so you can see there that the use of the elaborations is really about asking school leaders and teachers to reflect deeply on their own context. Because, as Katherine has said, if they're not paying attention to what's going on in their own school and they're just grabbing something from outside, there's a risk that it won't take hold and it won't have the positive impact. So we can use elaborations to look at our current practice. We can use the elaborations to identify new or alternative practices or approaches. And we can refine our response to student engagement and wellbeing needs by looking at what that elaboration document tells us. That was really just an opportunity for you to have a little bit of a think and a look at those two key tools that ACER put out into the landscape. They are available on our website, and we're happy to be contacted if you need more information. Thank you.